I thought she was just another alien. Then I learned she ruled the galaxy. The conference hall buzzed with quiet energy, a mix of anticipation and polite chatter. Delegates from across the world moved between rows of polished chairs, clutching notebooks and smartphones, exchanging small talk about the latest trends in technology and innovation. Among them, Rajan walked slowly, trying not to appear out of place. He was used to attending conferences, but this one felt different. There was a sense of something extraordinary in the air, an invisible current that made everyone seem just a little more alert, a little more curious. He had arrived early, wanting to find a good seat. As he passed the stage, his eyes fell on her. She was standing near the far corner, observing the room with calm precision.
At first glance, she looked almost
alien. Not because of her appearance, she was human after all, but because there was something in her posture, the way she held herself, that made her seem completely detached from the ordinary. While others fidgeted, checked their phones, or whispered to colleagues, she stood straight, serene, as if she existed in a world slightly apart from everyone else. Rajan blinked, unsure why he was drawn to her. There was no grand introduction, no announcement of her presence. She wore a simple dark suit, yet she seemed to command more attention than anyone else in the room. People around her paused in conversation when she walked by, offering polite nods and hushed words of respect.
Rajan wondered briefly if she was a speaker or a high-ranking guest.
But something about her demeanor suggested she was more than that. He shook his head and moved on, trying to focus on the schedule. The first session was about space research and sustainable technology. Speakers lined up on the stage discussing projects that aimed to change the world. Rajan listened politely, taking notes, but his thoughts kept drifting back to her. She hadn't joined the audience yet. Instead, she was standing quietly to the side, occasionally whispering to a small group of people who seemed to hang on her every word. After a few minutes, Rajan found himself walking over, unable to resist the pull of curiosity. He approached cautiously, not wanting to intrude. "Excuse me," he said softly. "Are you speaking today?" She turned, her eyes meeting his with a calm intensity that made him pause. They were sharp, intelligent eyes, the kind that seemed to look right through pretense and nonsense. She smiled lightly. "Not today," she said. Her voice was quiet but confident, carrying a tone that made people lean in without even realizing it.
"I'm here to observe." Rajan nodded, slightly embarrassed.
He had expected someone more outgoing, more theatrical. Instead, there was this quiet assurance that made her presence almost magnetic.
"I see," he said. "I'm Rajan, by the way."
I just couldn't help noticing. He trailed off, unsure how to explain why he felt compelled to speak to a stranger. She tilted her head slightly, a gesture that seemed more deliberate than casual. "Notice what?" she asked, curiosity in her voice. Rajan hesitated, then smiled awkwardly. "I guess the way people listen to you. It's unusual." Her smile widened just a fraction. "I suppose it is," she admitted, "but it's not what you think."
"I don't ask for attention, it just
happens."
She glanced around, observing a small cluster of people who had been silently watching them.
People respond to honesty, and sometimes that creates a kind of gravity. Rajan found himself fascinated. He had met many intelligent people before, but very few carried themselves with this level of calm authority. Wanted to ask more, but the session was about to start, and she nodded politely and stepped back toward her group. He watched as she spoke quietly, gesturing with subtle hand movements, clearly explaining something complicated. The group listened without interruption, completely focused on her every word. As the conference began, Rajan tried to focus on the speakers, but his mind kept wandering. He couldn't shake the feeling that he had stumbled upon someone extraordinary. Her presence seemed almost unreal, as if she existed slightly outside the boundaries of normal life. And yet, she was entirely real. During a break, Rajan wandered near the refreshment table, hoping to get another glimpse of her. To his surprise, she appeared beside him, reaching for a cup of water. She didn't startle him this time. Instead, she looked directly at him, as if she had been expecting him.
"You've been paying attention," she said softly.
Rajan laughed nervously. I couldn't help it.
You seem different! In a good way!
She studied him for a moment as if measuring his intentions. Then she nodded. Different can be uncomfortable for some, but for those who are willing to look, it's interesting. Rajan smiled. I think interesting is good, she chuckled lightly. I do too. But sometimes what seems interesting is actually just the surface of something much larger.
She took a small sip of water, then set the cup down.
Most people never notice it. Her words hung in the air, and Rajan felt a shiver of curiosity.
He wanted to ask what she meant, but before he could, a staff member called her name.
She nodded to him politely, then walked away, her movements precise and purposeful. The rest of the day passed in a blur. Rajan attended panels and presentations, but his thoughts kept returning to her. There was something about the way she carried herself, the quiet command she seemed to exert over the room, that left him both intrigued and unsettled. He tried to remind himself that she was probably just another professional, another speaker or delegate, but every time he thought that, he remembered the way people deferred to her, the way she seemed to influence the room without speaking loudly or demanding attention. That evening, Rajan found himself at the networking dinner. The large hall was filled with round tables, each covered in white linens and lit softly by candlelight. People moved around, exchanging cards, laughing politely, and discussing the day's events. Rajan sat quietly at one of the tables, trying not to seem out of place. He was halfway through his meal when he noticed her entering the hall. She wore a simple black dress that seemed to absorb the soft light, making her presence even more striking. She moved with the same calm confidence as before, scanning the room, greeting a few people with quiet smiles. Then, to his surprise, she walked directly toward him. "Mind if I join you?" she asked. Rajan blinked.
Not at all."
He quickly moved his plate aside to make room. She sat down gracefully, placing her hands on the table. "I hope your day was interesting," she said. "It was more than interesting," he admitted. "I'm Rajan, by the way, if you didn't hear me earlier." She smiled.
I remember, and you've been observing closely.
That counts for something. They began talking, and Rajan realized how easy it was to converse with her. She asked questions that went beyond small talk, questions that made him think and reflect. She didn't brag or boast. Instead, she spoke with clarity, intelligence, and a quiet authority that demanded respect without demanding it. He found himself sharing ideas and thoughts he rarely voiced, and she listened carefully, nodding thoughtfully, occasionally offering insight that made him see things in a new way. At one point, she leaned back slightly and mentioned a project she had been involved in, describing it in passing as if it were no big deal.
"It's just a small initiative I'm coordinating," she said lightly.
"We're trying to connect research teams across multiple countries. The goal is simple: improve communication, share resources, and push innovation faster than anyone thought possible." Rajan's eyes widened. That sounds enormous. "I mean, coordinating that many people in different countries with so many resources." He trailed off, unsure how to express the scale.
She shrugged lightly.
It's just a matter of understanding people, seeing the bigger picture, and trusting that others will do their part. The real challenge is keeping everything balanced without overwhelming anyone. Rajan shook his head in awe. I can't imagine managing that. Most people can't even organize a small team without chaos watch.
She smiled knowingly. Most people don't have to. But if you want to make an impact, you learn to navigate complexity. You don't need to control everything. You need to see the connections others miss. As the evening drew on, Rajan realized he had learned more in a few hours of casual conversation than he had in months of conferences. There was a depth to her knowledge, a quiet authority that seemed to touch everything she did, and a calmness that made people follow her lead without hesitation. He felt both inspired and slightly intimidated. Finally, she stood to leave, glancing at her watch.
I have to go, she said.
But it was good talking to you. Keep asking questions and paying attention. There's more to see than you think. Rajan nodded, feeling a mixture of admiration and curiosity. I will. Thank you. As she walked away, disappearing into the crowd, Rajan couldn't help but feel that he had just glimpsed something extraordinary. At first, he thought she was just another delegate, another professional blending into the background. But now he realized she was someone entirely different, someone who moved through the world with purpose, intelligence, and quiet authority, someone who seemed to touch lives without even trying. He sat back in his chair, watching the room, and for the first time he felt like he was only scratching the surface of something much bigger, something that he could barely understand, but couldn't stop thinking about. And he knew, deep down, that meeting her was only the beginning. The morning sun streamed through the conference center's large windows, casting long shadows on the polished floor. Rajan arrived early, hoping to get a head start on the day's sessions, but more than anything, he was hoping to catch another glimpse of her.
He had spent the previous evening replaying every moment of their conversation in his mind.
Every word she spoke, every gesture, every look. He couldn't shake the feeling that she was operating on a level far beyond everyone else. As he walked past the registration desk, he overheard whispers among the staff. Names of projects, countries, and teams were mentioned, and he realized with growing astonishment that she had something to do with all of it. His curiosity turned into a quiet, urgent need to understand how someone so young, or at least appearing young, could hold such influence. He found her in the corner of the main hall again, this time surrounded by a small group of people, some of them senior officials from various organizations. They spoke in low voices, but the attention they gave her was unmistakable. When she made a point, heads nodded. When she asked a question, answers were immediate, detailed, and careful. She didn't raise her voice or issue commands, yet the authority she carried seemed absolute. Rajan approached cautiously. I didn't expect to see you so early, he said, keeping his voice low. She glanced at him, and for a moment, her calm expression softened. There's work to be done, she said simply. Some things require attention before the day officially begins. He nodded, sensing that there was far more going on than he understood. He followed her to a quieter area, trying not to intrude. I have to ask, he said. How do you manage all of this? Coordinating teams, projects, countries? Well, it seems impossible.
She smiled faintly, as if amused by his amazement. It seems impossible because most people think only in small steps.
But the world works in networks. If you understand the connections, the flow of information, and the strengths of each person involved, what seems impossible becomes manageable. Rajan struggled to wrap his mind around it. Networks? Not the internet, she clarified with a gentle laugh. The human network, people, their skills, their experiences. When you understand how to guide them, influence spreads naturally.
It's not control. It's coordination, understanding, and trust.
He realized he had never met anyone who could explain leadership like this.
Most people spoke about power as something to take or demand. She spoke about influence as something to nurture quietly, like tending a garden.
Would you like to see? She asked suddenly. Before he could answer, she led him through a series of corridors to a room he hadn't noticed before. Inside, monitors lined the walls displaying maps, charts, and streams of information. Teams were working at desks, communicating through video calls, typing, and analyzing data.
This is one of the hubs for our project, she explained. It connects teams from 5 continents.
We track progress, share resources, and resolve challenges in real time. Everything here is coordinated to make sure no team is left behind and that we can respond to unexpected changes quickly.
Rajan's jaw dropped. The scale of it was staggering.
All this you manage. She shook her head slightly. Not me alone. I lead the strategy, provide guidance, and ensure that communication flows smoothly. The real work is done by these teams.
My role is to see the bigger picture, anticipate obstacles, and help people reach their potential. If I do my job well, everything else falls into place.
He looked around, noticing the focus and intensity in the room. People worked efficiently, but there was no fear, no tension. They seemed to be there because they wanted to be, because they respected the structure and the vision she provided.
This is incredible, he said.
Most organizations can barely manage a single team in one city, let alone coordinating hundreds across the world. She smiled faintly. That's because most people focus on the tasks themselves, not the system that supports them. Once you understand the system, tasks become easier, and people become empowered rather than exhausted. Rajan realized that she wasn't just managing projects, she was creating a network of trust and efficiency that allowed individuals to shine. The power she wielded wasn't visible in the traditional sense. She didn't have guards, bodyguards, or assistants following her everywhere. Instead, her influence was quiet, subtle, and far-reaching. Over the next few hours, he watched as she moved seamlessly between discussions, answering questions, clarifying points, and offering solutions that no one else had considered. At one moment, a technical issue threatened to delay a critical project. Teams were unsure how to respond. She calmly suggested a minor adjustment, something that seemed almost trivial at first. Within minutes, the problem was solved, and the teams resumed their work without losing momentum. Rajan couldn't help but be amazed. It wasn't just her knowledge that impressed him, it was her confidence, her calm under pressure, and her ability to see the implications of small actions on a global scale. He had never met anyone who could carry that kind of responsibility with such grace. During the short break, Rajan finally had a moment to speak with her privately. I have to admit, he said, I thought you were just another delegate yesterday. I had no idea how powerful you are.
She looked at him thoughtfully. Power is not the word I would use, she said.
Influence, perhaps. Responsibility. Opportunity.
There is a difference.
Power implies control. Influence implies guidance.
Responsibility implies care. I prefer to think in those terms.
He nodded slowly. Her perspective was completely different from anything he had encountered.
She didn't see herself as above others. She saw herself as a part of a larger system with the role of connecting, guiding, and supporting.
And it's all real?
He asked, still trying to process the scale of what he had seen.
All of this, the coordination, the teams, the projects, it actually works, she smiled, a hint of pride in her expression. It works because we make it work together. No one person can run the world alone.
The trick is to create a system where people want to participate, where they feel valued, and where communication never stops. Influence grows naturally when people trust each other. Rajan felt a growing respect mixed with awe. She wasn't just extraordinary because of her intelligence. She was extraordinary because she understood people, networks, and responsibility in a way that most could never even imagine. As the day went on, he followed her discreetly, observing meetings with executives, discussions with scientists, and briefings with team leaders. Everywhere she went, people listened, not because they had to, but because they wanted to. Not because she demanded attention, but because she had earned it through competence, fairness, and vision. During lunch, Rajan sat quietly at a table nearby, watching her interact with colleagues. She asked questions that revealed deep understanding and thoughtfulness, yet she listened more than she spoke. When someone suggested a new approach, she considered it carefully before responding, weighing the possibilities with calm precision. Her demeanor made others feel safe to speak openly, even about potential problems.
Rajan realized that this was the secret of her influence.
It wasn't about being loud or assertive. It was about clarity, empathy, and foresight. It was about seeing the bigger picture and helping others see it too. And the results were astonishing. Projects that might have failed or stalled were moving forward smoothly. Teams were motivated, confident, and coordinated. By the end of the day, Rajan felt both inspired and exhausted. He had spent hours observing someone who seemed to operate on a level far beyond what he had known. He had expected a brilliant professional, maybe a successful leader. But what he had discovered was far more extraordinary.
She was a force of quiet influence, touching lives, guiding people, and shaping outcomes in ways most would never notice.
As he walked back to his hotel, he reflected on everything he had seen. The woman he had once thought was just another alien was, in reality, someone who had mastered the art of influence, responsibility, and leadership. She had shown him that true power wasn't measured by titles or wealth, but by the ability to guide, inspire, and create impact on a scale that most could barely imagine. And for the first time, Rajan realized that meeting her had changed something in him. He didn't just admire her. He wanted to understand, to learn, and perhaps one day, to carry even a fraction of that influence in his own work. But as he turned the corner of the hotel lobby, he saw her again, speaking quietly with a small group of visitors, her calm presence commanding attention effortlessly. And he knew that what he had witnessed today was only the beginning. There was much more to discover, much more to understand about the person who seemed ordinary at first glance, yet ruled her own world in ways most people could only dream of. Rajan felt a mix of excitement and awe. He couldn't wait to see what tomorrow would reveal, and he knew, deep down, that his journey with her, learning, observing, understanding, had only just begun. The next day, Rajan arrived at the conference earlier than usual. The halls were quieter than yesterday, the air filled with a low hum of anticipation. Today, he thought, he would see her not just as a remarkable thinker, but as a true leader. He found her in a conference room that overlooked the city. The large windows let in the morning light, casting shadows over a table covered with documents, laptops, and coffee cups. Around the table sat people from different countries, representing multiple organizations and projects. Their faces reflected a mixture of respect and anxiety. It was clear that today's meeting was important. She stood at the head of the table, reviewing a large digital map projected on the wall. Lines, nodes, and markers connected teams across continents. Rajan realized with a start that she was coordinating an entire network of people who were solving problems the size of entire industries. The scale of it was staggering. God. "Good morning, everyone," she said, her voice calm but commanding. "Let's review our progress and address any critical issues before we move forward." Immediately, People began presenting updates highlighting challenges, sharing successes, and pointing out potential problems. One team had hit a major technical obstacle that threatened to delay a critical project. The atmosphere grew tense. Some of the team members looked unsure, hesitant to speak. Rajan could see the weight of responsibility on their shoulders. She listened quietly, her eyes moving steadily from one person to the next. She asked questions, not to embarrass, not to control, but to clarify and understand the situation.
"What options have we considered so far?" she asked softly, but everyone leaned in, eager to answer.
When they listed the options, she nodded thoughtfully. Then, in a calm, clear voice, she suggested a solution that no one else had considered. It was simple, almost obvious in hindsight, yet it required courage and coordination to implement. "Implement this approach immediately," she instructed. "Communicate the change to every team and make sure resources are reallocated efficiently. Track progress in real time so we can respond if anything changes." Within minutes, the room shifted. People moved confidently, making calls, typing updates, and coordinating across borders. Rajan watched in awe as the solution unfolded. What could have been a disaster turned into a smooth adjustment, and the project continued without interruption.
She didn't raise her voice.
She didn't scold or demand obedience, yet her authority was undeniable. Rajan realized that this was the difference between a manager and a true leader. She inspired action through clarity, vision, and trust, not fear or pressure. During a short break, Rajan stayed in the room, quietly observing. She walked among the teams, asking about their work, checking progress, and offering guidance. Each interaction was brief but meaningful. She didn't micromanage. She empowered. Her presence alone seemed to instill confidence in everyone around her. At one point, a young researcher approached her hesitantly.
"I'm not sure about this next step," he admitted. "It might fail, and I don't want to disappoint anyone."
She smiled gently.
Failure is not the end. It's information.
It tells us what works and what doesn't. The important thing is that we try, learn, and adapt. You're not failing. You're moving forward. The researcher nodded, visibly relieved, and returned to his work with renewed determination. Rajan felt a surge of admiration. He had seen many leaders in his life, but few could motivate people in such a subtle, empowering way. She didn't push, she guided. She didn't command, she inspired. As the day progressed, Rajan witnessed more examples of her leadership. She facilitated discussions between conflicting teams, helped resolve misunderstandings, and kept everyone focused on the big picture. Even when tensions rose, she remained calm, asking the right questions, redirecting attention to solutions rather than blame. During lunch, Rajan had a moment to speak with her privately. "Watching you today, it's incredible. You handle so much responsibility, and yet everyone seems calm around you. How do you do it?" She looked at him thoughtfully. "It's about preparation, trust, and perspective. You prepare for the unexpected, trust people to do their part, and keep perspective on the ultimate goal. Stress comes from focusing on what could go wrong instead of what can go right." Rajan nodded slowly. Her words resonated. He realized that her calmness wasn't a natural trait. It was a skill honed through years of experience and discipline. She didn't just lead, she had mastered the art of leadership. After lunch, the team faced another challenge. A critical deadline was approaching, and a key partner had not delivered their portion on time. Panic began to ripple through the room. People whispered, checked their phones, and exchanged worried glances. Rajan felt his own stomach tighten. She stepped forward, assessing the situation.
"Let's focus on solutions," she said.
"Who can take responsibility for bridging this gap? What resources can we shift to support them?" Within minutes, she had delegated tasks, reassigned personnel, and created a backup plan. teams moved efficiently, communicating across time zones, and the potential crisis began to resolve.
Rajan could hardly believe how quickly and smoothly it happened.
He realized that what he was witnessing was not just intelligence or skill. It was the ability to think clearly under pressure, to inspire trust, and to see the bigger picture when everyone else was overwhelmed.
She wasn't just leading a project, she was guiding an entire network, a miniature ecosystem with precision and care.
By late afternoon, Rajan felt both exhausted and exhilarated. He had seen challenges that would have paralyzed most teams, handled effortlessly by her guidance. He had witnessed her influence ripple across continents, touching every person involved. She wasn't just extraordinary, she was transformative. As the day drew to a close, she called for a final meeting. "Reflect on today's progress," she said. "Celebrate the successes, learn from the challenges, and be ready for tomorrow. Our work is continuous, and every step matters." Rajan watched as people left the room, inspired and motivated, their energy renewed. He remained at the center, calm and composed, reviewing notes and preparing for the next day. Finally, she noticed him standing quietly by the doorway.
"You've seen enough for one day," she said with a small smile.
But remember, leadership is not about spectacle. It's about impact, consistency, and care. Everything else is secondary, Rajan nodded, feeling the weight of her words. He had not just observed her leadership, he had experienced it. And he realized that this kind of influence was far more powerful than anything he had imagined. Walking back to his hotel that evening, Rajan reflected on the day. He had witnessed extraordinary competence, calmness under pressure, and a rare ability to inspire and empower people. She had handled crises that would have overwhelmed most teams, yet she had done so with grace, clarity, and quiet authority. He realized that her rule over the galaxy, her extraordinary influence, was not about fame, power, or control. It was about connection, trust, and guidance. She created systems that allowed people to perform at their best, to contribute meaningfully, and to feel valued. She didn't demand attention. She earned it through competence and care. Rajan felt both humbled and inspired. Meeting her had already changed the way he thought about leadership, responsibility, and influence. He understood now that true leaders didn't just manage, they empowered. They didn't just direct, they guided. And most importantly, they inspired others to achieve more than they thought possible. As he looked out of the hotel window at the city below, he thought about the thousands of people whose work she influenced, the challenges she had faced, and the calm determination she brought to every situation. It was almost unimaginable, yet it was real. And he knew, deep down, that he was witnessing something rare and extraordinary. A person who appeared ordinary at first glance, but held the power to change outcomes on a global scale. Someone who didn't just lead projects, but inspired people to believe in themselves, to strive for excellence, and to move forward even in the face of uncertainty. Rajan also realized that this experience was only the beginning. He wanted to learn more, to understand how she thought, how she made decisions, and how she inspired others. He wanted to see more of the galaxy she ruled, the invisible networks she guided, the lives she touched, and the influence she wielded so effortlessly. As night fell, he thought about her calm eyes, her quiet confidence, and the way she made even the most complex challenges seem manageable. He knew that what he had witnessed today would stay with him forever. It wasn't just about the projects or the teams. It was about the way she led, the way she inspired, and the way she transformed ordinary people into extraordinary contributors. For Rajan, the realization was clear. He had met someone truly remarkable, someone whose influence extended far beyond what he could see. And he couldn't wait to discover what more lay ahead. The final day of the conference arrived with a quiet sense of anticipation. Rajan walked through the hallways, still processing everything he had seen over the past 2 days. He had witnessed brilliance, calm authority, and leadership on a scale he had never imagined. And now he knew that today would be different. Today, he would understand not just the work she did, but the full measure of her influence. He found her already in the main hall, surrounded by the team she had guided. Unlike the first day, there was no tension, no signs of challenges waiting to be solved. Instead, there was an air of quiet accomplishment. People were relaxed, smiling, and exchanging encouraging words. Rajan noticed that much of the credit she might have taken for herself was being redirected to others. She spoke softly, praising contributions, asking questions that highlighted the efforts of her team. Rajan realized that this was another reason for her extraordinary influence. She gave credit where it was due. She made people feel valued, appreciated, and seen. Leadership, he understood now, was not about taking control. It was about empowering others to shine. As the morning sessions began, she took the stage briefly to address the entire conference. Her words were calm, precise, and thoughtful. She spoke about collaboration, problem-solving, and the importance of trust. She didn't boast about achievements or present herself as superior. Instead, she shared lessons learned, challenges faced, and the ways her team had overcome obstacles together. Rajan listened carefully, fascinated by her approach. She didn't use dramatic speeches or flashy presentations. Her influence came from honesty, clarity, and the ability to connect with people. Each sentence carried meaning. Each example illustrated a principle of leadership that went beyond technical skill. After the speech, she returned to a series of smaller meetings. Rajan followed at a respectful distance, observing her interactions. One discussion involved a potential partnership with a new organization. The team members were nervous, unsure how the negotiations would proceed. She entered the room with her usual calm confidence, greeted everyone politely, and asked thoughtful questions about the goals and values of the potential partner. Within minutes, tension eased, and the conversation shifted toward collaboration and shared purpose.
Rajan realized that her influence extended beyond the projects she managed.
She was shaping relationships, building trust, and creating a network that would endure long after the conference ended. She didn't control people. She inspired them. She didn't command attention. She earned it. And she didn't seek power. She created impact. During a brief break, Rajan finally had a chance to speak with her one-on-one. Watching you these past days, it's more than inspiring. It's almost hard to believe. You make everything seem effortless? She smiled, a soft, knowing expression. It only seems effortless because the foundation is strong. Planning, trust, preparation, and care. You can't guide others if you don't understand their needs or the systems that support them. Rajan nodded, absorbing her words. He thought about all the moments he had witnessed, the technical problems solved with simple, elegant solutions, the teams motivated without fear, the networks of people working across continents as if connected by an invisible thread.
She had not just managed projects. She had transformed people, creating an environment where success became natural.
You truly rule the galaxy, he said quietly, almost joking yet with admiration in his voice. Not in the way everyone expects, but in the way that matters most. She laughed lightly, a warm sound that eased the formality of the moment. I suppose you could say that. Balo, of course, is based on the stage of greed. But the galaxy I rule is made up of people, not planets. Influence, responsibility, and opportunity. These are what shape the world. And anyone can contribute to that if they are willing to learn and grow. Rajan felt a deep sense of clarity. He had thought her power was mysterious, almost otherworldly. Now he understood that it wasn't magic or special privilege. It was skill, empathy, and vision combined. She had created a system where people could succeed, and through that system, she influenced countless outcomes, touching lives in ways most would never notice. The afternoon sessions focused on collaborative projects and team reflections. Rajan observed her moving seamlessly between groups, offering guidance, asking questions, and encouraging dialogue. Her presence seemed to energize people, making them think more clearly and act more confidently. Even small contributions were acknowledged, and Rajan realized how important that recognition was. People worked harder, more creatively, and with more dedication, because she made them feel valued. One particular moment stood out. A young team leader approached her, hesitant, holding a report with numbers that didn't match expectations. The team had made a mistake, and tension filled the room. Many leaders might have expressed frustration or assigned blame, but she crouched slightly, met the young leader's eyes, and spoke quietly. "Numbers are information, not judgment," she said. "Mistakes show us where we can improve. We learn, adjust, and move forward. You are not defined by one moment. You are defined by how you respond and grow."
The young leader nodded, visibly relieved, and left with renewed confidence. Rajan was amazed.
In just a few words, she had removed fear, replaced it with determination, and strengthened the team's resolve. He realized that her impact was not only in the decisions she made, but in the way she shaped the mindset of everyone around her. As the day drew to a close, she gathered the teams for a final reflection.
Today was remarkable, she said.
Not because of individual achievements, but because of how we work together. Success is not a solitary accomplishment. It is the result of collaboration, trust, and continuous effort. Remember this in every project, every interaction, and every decision you make. Rajan watched as the teams nodded, their energy renewed, their sense of purpose clear. He understood now that her leadership created a ripple effect. It wasn't just about the projects themselves. It was about creating a culture of trust, respect, and empowerment that would last far beyond any single task. Later, she spoke with Rajan privately. "You've been observing closely," she said. "Do you see now what I mean by influence?" He nodded, feeling a mixture of awe and humility.
"I do. It's not about control or recognition.
It's about connection, guidance, and the way you inspire people to do their best." She smiled, a gentle, almost proud expression.
"Exactly. George, patient and consistent. It grows when people trust you, when they know you care, and when they see that your decisions are fair and thoughtful. True leadership is not measured by power. It is measured by impact."
Rajan felt a sense of understanding settle within him.
For 2 days he had witnessed brilliance, calm authority, and extraordinary influence. He realized that he had learned far more than technical knowledge or strategies. He had learned a lesson in leadership, responsibility, and the power of human connection. As he walked back to his hotel, he reflected on the past few days. He thought about the challenges faced and overcome, the projects that had moved forward smoothly, and the confidence and motivation she had instilled in everyone around her.
He realized that this experience had changed him.
He would never see leadership the same way again. Rajan also realized that meeting her had sparked something within him. He wanted to learn, to grow, and to apply the lessons he had observed. He wanted to create influence in his own life, in his own work, and to help others succeed, as she had helped her teams.
Red Giant?
That evening, as the conference ended and people began to leave, he saw her one last time in the main hall. She was speaking quietly with a small group, her calm presence commanding attention effortlessly. There were no flashy gestures or dramatic words, yet the effect she had on those around her was profound. People listened, learned, and felt inspired, simply because she was there. Rajan watched for a long moment, feeling a deep sense of gratitude. He had thought she was just another delegate, another speaker. but he had discovered someone extraordinary, a person whose influence touched countless lives, whose leadership created opportunities, and whose guidance shaped outcomes far beyond what most people could see. As she finally walked away, disappearing into the crowd, Rajan realized the truth. She truly ruled a galaxy, not of planets and stars, but of people, ideas, and possibilities. Her galaxy was invisible to most, yet powerful in ways that mattered deeply, and he felt honored to have glimpsed it, inspired to carry a fraction of that influence into his own world. Rajan left the conference with a sense of purpose and clarity he had never felt before. He understood now that extraordinary people often appear ordinary at first glance, but their true power lies in their ability to guide, inspire, and transform. He knew that the lessons he had learned from observing her would stay with him for the rest of his life, and for the first time, he felt that he had not just witnessed greatness, he had learned from it.